And of course, some of the first things you notice is how outdated the visuals are. I mean, that's given, but it's a sign of a good movie if it keeps you interested in spite of that. So I guess we'll find out if it did. Welcome back to another episode of The Rank. I'm John, and today we're going to be continuing our action movie rankings. Now, for those of you that are new to the show, I'm going to give you an agenda for the episode real quick. We start with the potent notables, which are just a few interesting facts or tidbits that I found out about the making of the movie, or the movie in general. Then I'll do the movie overview, which is where I talk about what happened in the movie. Then I do the rank, which is the namesake of the show, where I rank the movie in 10 categories on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best, all to find out what are the best action movies of all time. And today, I'm going to be ranking Tron, the 1982 sci-fi action movie starring Jeff Bridges and Bruce Boxleitner, with a story by Bonnie McBird and Steven Lisberger, and a screenplay written by Steven Lisberger, who also directed it. So we did Tron Ares last week. Will the original end up being better? Now, I will say there are going to be some spoilers for this. If you're worried about getting spoilers, watch the movie before you watch this or listen to it. But let's find out if the original was better than the new one, starting with the potent notables.
Potent notables.
So as always, the potent notables start with the movie's financials. Tron made $33 million domestically and nothing that I found internationally, for a worldwide total of $33 million. Now, this was against a budget of $17 million, so it didn't do great, but not bad either. But while it didn't do great at the box office, the arcade games based on it ended up being huge. Midway, the game developers, sold 10 to 12,000 cabinets on the arcade release, which made between $30 and $36 million, basically matching the box office returns. But the arcade game itself ended up making over $100 million, with estimates of up to $200 million in coins in 1982 and 83. That's bananas. Now, this film was actually disqualified from receiving an Academy Award nomination for special effects because the Academy felt at the time that using computer-generated effects was cheating. That's just crazy. Actually, many Disney animators refused to work on this movie because they feared that computers would put them out of business. In fact, 22 years later, Disney closed its hand-drawn animation studio in favor of CGI animation. Hand-drawn animation was ultimately resumed at Disney at the behest of new creative director John Lasseter, also head of Pixar, ironically a computer animation company. But let's talk about the CGI, because it was considered state-of-the-art at the time. It was the first movie to incorporate long sequences of all CGI, specifically 15 minutes worth, which was unheard of at the time. Even John Lasseter acknowledged Tron's influence on the future of cinema and computer graphics, saying, "Without Tron, there would be no Toy Story." What's wilder still is that the state-of-the-art computer used for the film's key special effects had only 2 megabytes of memory and 330 megabytes of storage. For those of you who aren't computer savvy, I guess, that's not much. Okay, so just one more potent notable. To inspire the actors, arcade games were placed on the production sets and could be played during downtime. Jeff Bridges apparently was the most adept at the games and found it hard to tear himself away from a game to shoot a scene. I feel like that's pretty fitting. All right, those are all the potent notables. Let's go to the movie overview. Now, this episode is coming out the week after Tron Ares, but I watched it the week before because I wanted a refresher before I went to see the new one, which, by the way, I still haven't seen at this point. I was convinced that I had seen it before because, of course I had seen Tron, right? This is the thought I had in my head anyway. As it turns out, having watched it, I don't think I had seen it before. And of course, some of the first things you notice is how outdated the visuals are. That's given, but it's a sign of a good movie if it keeps you interested in spite of that. So I guess we'll find out if it did. The other thing I did when I was watching it was think, how many years ago did this come out? And then I did the math quick in my head, and my first instinctive thought was, man, it's old. Then in the very next instant, it occurred to me that it is only 1 year older than me.
Damn.
So not only am I calling myself out, but it's kind of pathetic that I did the math to figure out the movie's age. Oh, there you go. Anyway, the movie scratches a nostalgia itch right from the get-go with Flynn's Arcade, with all those old coin-op arcade games. Now, granted, they were actually a little bit before my time, but going to arcades to play games wasn't, so I enjoyed that. We focus in on one game in particular, Light Cycle. Now, 40 years later, we've seen thousands of variations on the idea of this game, but it's a fun one. But this is also where we meet Sark, the villain understudy of the movie, in a very goofy-looking outfit. But we also are led to understand that Sark is a program program and he's killing other programs that maybe aren't built for gaming, all at the behest of the ultimate villain, the Master Control Program, or MCP. Now, they show these other programs and all life in this digital world is very muted gray, with bright blue lights for the programs that still believe in users, which the MCP calls a religion, and bright red lights for the outfits of the MCP. So the MCP is going around to other companies' systems and stealing their programs, essentially taking the ones that are useful to it and killing the ones that aren't, in some kind of gladiatorial-like games. Supposedly, from what we hear later in the movie, these programs can leave their cult and join the new one worshipping the MCP deity, or be killed if they stick with the user deity. Now, back in the real world, we see that Flynn, one of the heroes of the movie, is trying to hack into Encom. Why? Well, as it turns out, Dillinger, one of the executives of Encom, stole his games and reaped the benefit of it. On top of that, Flynn was fired. So what he was looking for was proof that he was the creator of the games and not Dillinger. We find this out through Alan and Laura. Now, you see, Laura is dating Alan, who is upset because he just got kicked out of working on a program called Tron, which is meant to watchdog the MCP. But Laura used to date Flynn and knows that it was him trying to hack in and that means that Dillinger's on to him. So she suggests that they go warn Flynn, which Alan is a little jealous about. I mean, I get it.
A little bit confusing.
Though nothing ever comes of that plot line again. I mean, not really anyway, except that Alan's avatar/program Tron gives a jealous look at a digitized Flynn when Flynn gives a knowing smile to Yori, who is Laura's avatar in the digital world, even though it's never explained that she has any program within this system. You know, that sentence sounds incredibly confusing.
Yes, it does.
But the movie is actually not that confusing. Not really confusing at all, really. The premise here is that the MCP has grown beyond the powers of Dillinger to control, to the point that the MCP actually blackmails its creator into giving it what it wants. And it uses the files that proves that Dillinger stole from Flynn to do so. It seems that Dillinger is some kind of CEO, though he's explained as a senior VP, but then we find out that the laser scientist who's working with Laura in the laser bay is the founder of the company but has no power. Anyway, the laser scientists have developed a way to deatomize an object, basically turn it digital, then have the computer use the laser to reatomize it. Now, if you were wondering before what I meant by a digitized Flynn, I bet you can connect the dots now. So back to the meeting of the love triangle. Flynn tells a story about how Dillinger fucked him to Alan.
He did what?
And in pretty short order, Alan is convinced that they should all go together and hack into their company's, former company in Flynn's case, system and install Tron to get the proof of what Dillinger did. So they sneak into the company. Laura goes with Flynn to the laser area so that he can log in there, and Alan goes to his computer, which is in a cubicle in a vast sea of cubicles. Well, the MCP knows Flynn when he sees such amazing programming happening and decides to zap him with a laser and digitize it. Though Flynn getting digitized is how we discover that Tron is in the program Gladiator games as well, and he's super good. We find out because the MCP doesn't want Sark to kill him, he wants Flynn to die playing the games. Why? Because he's sadistic, I guess? Well, he misses his opportunity to kill him and therefore continue his evil plan of hacking into the Kremlin and the Pentagon. Now, like all inept villains, he does get another chance to kill him, but doesn't, opting instead to let him ride it out and think of a plan to get away and save Yori as well. Of course, that's at the end. Getting to that point requires Flynn to play a couple games and show that he's better than the computer at them, as he's able to escape with Tron and Ram while playing Light Cycle. Then it's a simple Hobbit's journey to Mount Doom.
Wrong movie.
Or in this case, the I.O. Tower or Power Tower, so that Tron can throw his disc into the fire, or light, and communicate with Alan. Well, unlike Mount Doom, Alan gives the disc back and tells Tron to go to Sauron himself and destroy him. And well, he does. Look, you don't need me to describe the final showdown. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. If you have, then you know that Sark gets super big and does nothing with his glorious height. But let's find out how this action movie ranked in the pantheon of action movies.
A rank.
So the rank is where I rank the movie based on 10 categories: story, acting, originality, action sequences, film coherence, hero appeal, villain appeal / hatred, supporting characters appeal, the final showdown, and my rank. I rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And before I dive into the rankings here, if you're enjoying this episode, please leave a like down below. It really does help me out. But on to the rankings. The first category is story, which I gave a 4.5. This is a really fun story. I love the idea that the programs are humans and we see them acting out their lives. It feels very Matrixy to me, which means the Matrix should feel very Tron-y to me, I guess. This whole story was creative and fun, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. So let's go to acting, which I gave a 4. Now, this is a tough category because I feel like this should be lower, but I thought they all did really well. I mean, there's a regrettable scene with Ram and Flynn when Ram dies, but I didn't actually see that as bad acting, but more like, what the hell are we doing acting? Jeff Bridges is always fun to watch, and while you could make an argument that the others are kind of stiff, I think that was kind of the point. So I'm ranking on a curve here, but it's my show, so that's how it's gonna be. So let's go to originality, which I gave a 5. This is an incredibly original premise that has been repeated often since in various unique ways that are also original, but this is the one that started it. I'm sure a younger generation might watch this and deride its visuals, but really, it paved the way. So let's go to action sequences, which I gave a 2. Now, this is where the older visuals really hurt the movie. The action sequences weren't necessarily bad, but they had to rely on computer graphics for things that were really not super enjoyable to watch when fast forwarded to the future. The post-light cycle chase scene was, well, not good. And it doesn't necessarily detract from the movie because this was necessary for the plot. It still was just, not fun to look at, which is mostly what you want from an action movie. But the story and built-in tension save it from being lower than a 2, in my opinion. So let's go to film coherence, which I gave a 1.5. Another category that isn't that great with this movie. I mean, we have Yori, who is clearly meant to show that Laura is her user, but we're never informed that Laura has a program to be a user of. So how? Why does a computer system want to watch computer programs do gladiator games until they die? Then again, the computer catches the heroes and is like, no, I'm gonna Bond villain this thing and let a ship seemingly endlessly de-res to kill you, giving you plenty of time to find a way out. No explanation needed for Alan to go hack into his company with his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend. And then the biggest culprit, the end. His triumphant moment is when the computer prints off a page saying that he's the creator of the Space Paranoids game, which is just a great name, by the way. But it's just a piece of printed paper. Like, that's not evidence or proof. And then we see that he's now made the boss. But what happened to Dillinger? I suppose I'm fine with using my imagination, but it's just odd. Anyway, let's go to hero appeal. So I put Flynn and Tron together here because I don't know how to separate them. But either way, I enjoyed them a lot. I gave them a 4.25. Probably Flynn more than Tron, but Flynn was fortunate to have the Jeff Bridges charisma, so. All right, so let's go to villain appeal / hatred, which I also gave a 4.25. The Master Computer Program, or MCP. If you were to say to me, okay, here's the villain. He's a computer program and he's just a disembodied voice, I would tell you that's probably going to get below a 2. And yet here we are at above a 4. I thought it was a really good villain. I keep calling it he because the disembodied voice was masculine, but he's not a he, it's just a computer program. So anyway, I was really looking forward to them finally getting to this thing, so kudos to the filmmaker, I guess. All right, so let's go to supporting characters appeal, which I gave a 4. So this is basically Dillinger, Sark, Ram, Laura, and Yori, along with some other programs along the way. I thought they all fulfilled their roles really well. Laura was surprisingly fun for how ill-defined and kind of meaningless her character was. Sark was a good villain in that he always appeared strong, but you got to see that he was kind of a coward when it came down to it. And Ram was fun as our character that provides exposition. So yeah, I enjoyed them. So let's go to the final showdown, which I gave a 3.75. I cannot believe that I'm giving this high of a score, but I am. I really enjoyed the showdown, bad graphics and all. I thought it was cool when Flynn jumped into the beam and Tron threw the disc through. It was all really good. Not the best ever by any stretch, but certainly entertaining. So that leads me to my rank. And I gave it a 3.75. I liked this much more than I was expecting to. I mean, I was laughing at the graphics and costumes in the beginning, but it won me over. It probably deserves a higher score for quieting my mind from making fun of it while watching it. Look, I didn't expect killer action scenes or great dramatic prose, but if you want a good time with a fun concept, this is worth the watch. So that puts the total for Tron at a 37, which puts it in the tier I'd watch it again, putting it just below Fire Down Below and just above Nobody. So thanks for listening and or watching. If you'd like to see a list of our action movie rankings, you can do that on our website at therankpodcast.com. Now, if you're enjoying these rankings or you just like the idea of getting a review of an action movie based on it being an action movie, please consider subscribing and or following, like the episode, comment. You can reach out to me via email at info@therankpodcast.com with questions, suggestions, whatever. I will respond to you if you want one. And if you really want to support us, you can become a patron at patreon.com/therankpodcast, where you can get access to all of our archived episodes. But anyway, that's the end. So,
Identification Division, Program ID, Goodbye Prod, Procedure Division, Display Goodbye Operator, Stop Run.
Now, looking into this sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole, and I hope you'll indulge me here. Actually, I hope Antonio indulges this on your behalf, because I think he's going to want to cut this.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so in late 1979, Lisberger and his co-writer Bonnie McBird visited the Palo Alto Research Center, or PARC, to research for their script. Now, this was a research institute that was funded by Xerox. Here's where it gets really fascinating. They invented the graphical user interface, or GUI, which is point-and-click mouse interactions on a desktop. Hard to imagine a time without that now.
1 hour later.
They met with Alan becoming the basis for the Alan same month that they visited Jobs. Within, 10 minutes, it was obvious Xerox was making so much money from photocopiers. All this, Bill Gates' Microsoft, which was an oversight.
Many hours later.
I mean, that's just a fun story all the way around.
No, sir, it was not.
Could you all comment and let Antonio know that this is fun and interesting stuff and should be left in, even if it doesn't directly pertain to the movie?
No.